Hello and welcome to the John Dulong Show. Welcome to episode number 46. And yeah, we're back. We're back and rolling on the Monday morning nonsense. I'm John Dulong. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you're having a wonderful Monday so far. Or, you know, whenever you're listening to the show. I'm not your boss. I'm not telling you when to listen to the show. We are available every single Monday morning. From here on out, I've gone back to the Mondays just simply because it just is where the show belongs, guys. The Friday thing was fun. I did come up with the Friday afternoon fun times and the Friday afternoon fiesta, but the Monday morning nonsense, man, that's what this show was built on. Of course, the other thing that this show was built on is just me getting the opportunity to just sort of get whatever I need to get off my chest, off of the old chest. Talk about just about anything on this show. It's my personal blog in podcast form. And this week, I want to start off with a conversation about the WWE. Now, I know I cover wrestling on this show every once in a while. I haven't been watching as much of the current product recently, so I'm not going to be talking about what's going on and talking about matches that are coming up that I'm excited about, because I've been watching a bunch of old stuff, and I'm not going to talk about that on this show either, because quite frankly, there's like a million wrestling retrospective podcasts out there that you can go and listen to if you want to. What I am going to talk about is the WWE's current plans to do a show over in Saudi Arabia. Now, this will be their second show in Saudi Arabia. They did one earlier this year called The Greatest Royal Rumble, which was kind of gross. I mean, here's the thing. I don't think I'm coming off as too controversial when I say that I don't think that the Saudi Arabian government, as it stands right now, are really a bunch of cool cats. I don't think they're good guys. You know what I'm saying? And when I say guys, like, let's be real, it's guys. So this all comes amid the news that journalist, Saudi-born journalist and sort of exile from Saudi Arabia, self-imposed exile, I guess. I'm not really sure, but certainly this implies that it wasn't maybe all that self-imposed. Anyhow, Jamal Khashoggi, which I believe I'm pronouncing that right if the internet has not led me astray. Khashoggi was last seen going inside of the main entrance of the Saudi Arabian consulate in Istanbul in Turkey on the 2nd of October. He was going there to obtain a document from the consulate that proved that he was divorced from his first wife. It would allow him to marry his fiancée, who I'm not going to attempt her name, who's a Turkish citizen, and she was waiting outside. 4 p.m. rolls around. He's not coming out. The consulate had closed at 3:30. Saudi Arabian government said, he went out through a back door. Meanwhile, the fiancé reported him missing. The government says that he was in the Turkish government, I should say, was still inside. Fiancé and friends said that he was still missing. Basically, through numerous anonymous police sources, Turkish police believe that Khashoggi was tortured, killed inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. There's a lot of implications that this was all a big setup to get Khashoggi in a situation where he would be alone and be able to be tortured and killed and disappeared by the Saudi Arabian government. Khashoggi was a journalist who wrote as a progressive in a not-so-progressive state that is Saudi Arabia. He worked as a progressive voice in Saudi Arabia, and certainly for all of the what the Saudi Arabian government is doing, and it's an interesting ploy on their part. You know, they're not seen on the world stage as being a progressive place. They're not seen as being a good place for in terms of women's rights and all that sort of stuff. That's it's an authoritarian regime. So they have this hot new prince, and like he's like the new heir apparent to the crown, Mohammed bin Salman, who has all of these like, we're gonna let women drive now, and like dancing and will be a thing, and like we're gonna open up the cinemas again. Meanwhile, like they're sort of leveraging groups like the WWE to come in and put on these big super shows as a way of promoting the Saudi government and showing that they're nice and whatever. While a lot of the worse human rights atrocities and negative war-like tendencies of the Saudi Arabian government continue on unabated. It's all sort of a smoke show, basically, of just like, okay, we're going to do these nice big it's kind of, in a way, it's here's an analogy for you. It's kind of the opposite in a way of what China does. China promises a bunch of trade but doesn't really do anything about any of their sort of human rights abuses of the past, whereas what the Saudis are doing is that they're doing some of the stuff going around their human rights abuses. They're changing some of they're giving the illusion of liberalizing some of their human rights and their women's rights and stuff like that, without actually making any real changes. I don't know if that's really the opposite of China. Maybe that analogy didn't really work for me in the end, but you kind of get the drift. So you get back in March around WrestleMania, the WWE and the Saudi General Sports Authority announcing the Greatest Royal Rumble live event to be held in April at the King Abdullah Sports City in Jeddah. The actual event goes down, and the WWE is making a shit ton of money for this. In September, the WWE and the Saudi General Sports Authority announced a follow-up to the Greatest Royal Rumble, Crown Jewel, which is scheduled to take part on November the 2nd at the King Fahd International Stadium in Riyadh. So apparently there's a 10-year strategic multi-platform partnership between the WWE and the Saudis in order to both promote the Saudi Vision 2030, which is the plan to reduce their dependency on oil, diversify its economy, blah, blah, blah. Basically, it's just also a way of just like trying to promote them as being like, oh, look at us, we're a good actor in the world stage. And like if you go and watch the Greatest Royal Rumble, it is kind of gross how much they are promoting. They're promoting the Saudi government and sort of what they're all about. You then have this situation now where they're scheduled to hold a show again where no women will compete on the show. No, like WWE out of one side of their mouth talk about, and they are hosting their first ever women's only pay-per-view a couple of weeks before Crown Jewel, but out of one side, like, oh, look at what we're doing for women. On the other side, like, the women can't go in this huge event that we have scheduled over in Saudi Arabia because of the politics of it. Anyhow, there's all of this is to say there's a lot of like news articles and stuff out there that you can read about this topic if you want to get into it in a way that makes a whole lot more sense than I am making right at this particular moment. On Friday, apparently, the WWE held an impromptu meeting amongst themselves, talent and management, to discuss the controversy surrounding Khashoggi's alleged assassination, how to deal with it. Apparently, they're considering a new venue for Crown Jewel, possibly in the UK. And also, like, it was coming out that a lot of WWE talent, a lot of the wrestlers, just weren't happy with having to go over to Saudi Arabia. They didn't feel comfortable with it. Didn't feel comfortable with what they were essentially becoming pawns in. Apparently, the Wrestler Observer newsletter was reporting that WWE was definitely looking for backup venues, planned to move matches from Crown Jewel over to Survivor Series, sort of the next major pay-per-view. And then on top of that, news is broken that several United States senators are putting pressure on WWE to not go forward with the Crown Jewel event. Basically, at that point in time, WWE employees were still going ahead with working on logistics and planning for the event as if it were going ahead. However, a lot of folks are sort of seeing that, like, Linda McMahon, Vince McMahon, owner, operator, whatever of the WWE, his wife is actually a member of the Trump administration. Which, I mean, hey, that tells you a thing or two about what's going on with the politics of the WWE. But that's besides the point. I'm not really talking about that right now. You have a situation where senators are, as far as I can tell, across the aisle are saying, like, maybe this shouldn't be a thing that we do. That a company that's known as a patriotic American company in the WWE should maybe not be going over to Saudi Arabia at this particular moment due to the controversy surrounding the assassination of this journalist. Maybe, just maybe, that's a bad idea. You've got increasing pressure because a member of the McMahon family is actually part of the Trump administration. And then there's just the bare bones facts, and this is where I'm going to come down on this with the old opinion hammer. This is just fucking wrong. Like, it is just wrong. Like, I know WWE is getting untold millions upon millions of dollars for this, and it makes a whole lot of business sense for them because, like, I mean, they're a publicly traded company. They have stockholders that they are beholden to. Like, they are a company that needs to make money and they need to make profits for their shareholders. I understand that, and whether or not I think that is gross, I understand that that's the reality of the situation, okay? And they have this opportunity to make millions upon millions of dollars with a foreign government, just by putting on some wrestling shows that they would, like to put on anyhow. And whatever, I get it, I understand that. Here's the long and short of it, though. It is just so wrong. Right? It is just so wrong to the point where it's just like, I don't understand how the Greatest Royal Rumble event went off without major controversy, but hey, it did. Now we're in a situation where we have a show that's about to take place that is facing a great deal of potential controversy, to the point where they are definitely going to make an official announcement, as I understand it anyhow, this week. I believe on the matter on Wednesday. So either it will be officially canceled, or it will be going forward. I hope that the WWE makes the right choice, because like I said, like I've sort of hinted at throughout this whole, maybe poorly explained primer on the situation. Assassination of a journalist aside, the Saudi government, they're not good hombres right now, and even if they're putting a literal dump truck of cash into the coffers of the WWE, and then by extension the pockets of its shareholders, it's just not the right thing to do. And I would hope that like there's like an understanding that like maybe the long-term health of the company requires you to have folks feel that you are a company that they want to actually do business with. And like, quite frankly, like I don't want to be doing business with a company that's willing to make a quick buck, promoting and glorifying the name of a brutal dictatorial regime. Now, there's a lot to be said about the fact that like governments here in Canada, in the United States, all over the world, they've gotten in bed with the Saudis as well. That's not great either. And I'm not excusing that necessarily. What I'm saying here is like there's a unique confluence of events in a lot of ways that are happening right now that maybe, just maybe, might mean that the right decision is forced upon the WWE in this case, and I hope that they make that right decision. Anyhow, that's the opening rant section of the show. On the other side of this little break, I'm going to be chit-chatting about something maybe a little bit less angry. We're going to talk about a little bit of art. Some exciting stuff that's happening here in my city.